Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this video, we got to talk about quiet quitting. That's right, quiet quitting. No matter where I look, whether it's my news feed or my YouTube feed, everywhere I go, I get inundated with people quiet quitting. And I thought that's really interesting because it feels like the comic book market right now is kind of quiet quitting. I mean, we got record sales going on. We got, books that people can't even give away going on, and nobody seems to care. So in this video, we're going to talk about, the current state of the market, do a little bit of a market rambling video, talk about this idea of quiet quitting, go over some record sales, and then overall, I'm going to kind of give you guys my thoughts on generally where we are in the market. I feel like it's a really interesting time right now for comic book collectors. But before we get into the video, if you guys could drop me a like or comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, helps support the channel doing those things, I would appreciate it. But let's get into this video here today. Now, quiet quitting. I don't know if you guys have been kind of, serviced this idea of quiet quitting yet, but I've been seeing it everywhere. And the basic idea, the basic premise is that a lot of people right now, in the workforce are basically doing what is called quiet quitting. And that's just this general sense of apathy. They show up to work, they do what they are asked to do, they kind of skate through everything, and, they really just don't go above and beyond, what they're expected to do. And then, effectively, that kind of ultimately leads them to getting fired or quitting from their job, just putting in the bare minimum amount of work. And I feel like comic books are right there right now. There's just this feeling of apathy amongst a lot of comic book collectors. I don't know if you guys feel the same. I mean, granted, we got, our D23 announcement. There was a lot of crazy, spec movement and people were buying up comic books and stuff. But, outside of that, outside of kind of the news wave of things, I don't know. I mean, we have record sales. No one's talking about them. We got books, on eBay right now that are just like great key books. Nobody's bidding on them. It's really interesting. And I feel like with where we're headed in this current kind of global economic recession, things like that, it'll be a true test for comic books, in these next few months or so. I mean, we've been doing our market reports with the Silver Age Index. And, I'm personally of the opinion that come November, December, January, we might start to trend up. Other, factors could be at play there. But we're really going to find out, where comic books stand, where things are, are comic books recession proof, because they're going to get put to the test. But, I kind of wanted to go into some of these record sales and talk to you about these things because I feel like, again, nobody's really talking about this. And this is huge news. I don't know if you guys heard, but just the other day, Rocket copy of Action Comic #1 sells for record $3.4 million. That was the sound of an exclamation mark going over the top of my head because, as you guys would know, $3.4 million is the third most expensive comic book ever bought. I mean, the very most expensive comic book ever bought happened earlier this year for Superman #1 that set a whopping record at 5.3 million, 5.4 million, I believe that it was. Then we had the Amazing Fantasy 15 book that sold earlier this year as well that went for 3.6 million, or actually that was last year. And then we have this Action Comics #1, the actual record for Action Comics #1 at 3.4 million. This is actually a copy that sold last year as well, the very unique Rocket copy that people are talking about because it has this rocket ship stamped right here. But let's kind of get into this article and talk about this because it's really interesting. I feel like nobody cares that this happened. But there's a new Action Comics #1 King in Town, guys. The iconic comic has set a new personal best, selling through a private sale for 3.4 million. Now, private sale, maybe that's one of the reasons why it hasn't really kind of hit the news rounds, but this is still massive regardless. Press release courtesy of Golden, the one-of-a-kind Rocket copy of Action Comics #1, which features the first ever appearance of the beloved Superman, was purchased for a record-breaking 3.4 million. Golden arranged the private sale in conjunction with Metropolis Comics of New York. The sale is the highest price paid ever for a copy of Action Comics #1. They kind of go on to the history of it. They talk about it, the buyers and things like that. But I just think that it is crazy that this particular book, which was sold not too long ago. I mean, last year, I think this one went for 3.1 million at the time in which it was sold. And that was actually the record for this particular book, or maybe at least certainly this particular grade. And now we have this sale once again. And, effectively, this is the new all-time record for Action Comics #1. Now, that's not to say that we're never going to break this record again. There's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 copies above the 6.0 rocket copy here. And actually, I'm correcting myself. You can see that one of the 9.0s sold in 2014 for 3.2 million. So who knows what that's going to go for today? I mean, maybe it could be a $10 million book if it had a sale today at that particular grade. But pretty amazing stuff. I mean, Action Comics #1 selling at these record prices, and in this current market we're in, that's pretty impressive because we have all of these things pulling back. The stock market's crashing. We got all of our housing markets going down, and a lot of people have always said that comic books are recession proof. I'm not necessarily so sure I'm ready to agree with them. I mean, certainly specific comic books that are unique and rare and key issues like in Action Comics #1, yeah, those ones might be recession proof as well. And it is impressive to see that in this current time, somebody was able to get a record sale for this book. In my opinion, the theory for me was always, well, comic books are recession proof simply due to the fact that the people who own them don't sell during recessions. I mean, they're just willing to hold on to them. But if they had to sell it and get liquid cash that day, could they actually get record prices for it? I don't know what the current situation was with this particular seller, but I am impressed. They were able to get not only their money back from when they bought it, but actually a little bit more. Additionally, there were some other crazy heritage auction sales that happened this past weekend. I mean, some of you guys might have heard about it, but I'm blown away with how many record sales there were at this particular auction. I mean, usually at auctions, you can maybe get a couple record sales, but there were actually so many that occurred. Specifically, starting with this one right here, Captain America #117, of course, the first appearance of Falcon. This is a book that has actually been super cold across the board at most of the grades, but a 9.8 with white pages in a new CGC case, actually, sold for $78,000. The record for this one was $6,000 all the way back in 2011. But $78,000 seems like a lot for this book. I mean, that's definitely a very strong sale, considering that I think that there's maybe 4 copies that exist of this book at the 9.8 grade, but there might only be 1 copy that has white pages and is in a new CGC case, which is why I think this particular book set the record price that it did. I'll just kind of scroll through. You guys can see if you're Golden Age fans, tons of Golden Age record sales always going on. I mean, obviously with, the amount of limited supply for Golden Age, there's always going to be a record price due to, the rate of inflation regardless. This Hero for Hire book was an incredible sale as well. And 9.8 broke the 6-figure range, selling for $102,000. First appearance of Luke Cage, Hero for Hire. Another, book that has a very limited supply. I believe there's only a handful of copies at the 9.8 grade, full black cover, much like the Ghost Rider book. Very hard to find this one in that rare of quality. So another huge sale for this book. This one is very cool to talk about. Punch Comics #12, a 1.5 went for $15,000. This is basically now kind of established itself as a 5-figure book, no matter what grade you're looking at. Pre-Code Horror, especially recently, has been crazy in demand, but Punch Comics #12 definitely a bona fide key at this point. Other amazing sales. I mean, some great FF52 books. Captain America Comics #1, 5.0 sold for $180,000. I think that this is quickly becoming a 6-figure book at every single grade. I mean, we'll eventually get to the point, I'm sure, or even a 0.5 is going to set you back $100,000 for that thing. Batman #1, also a book that is clearly defining itself to be a 6-figure book, no matter the grade, even at the low end. And then a lot of other great sales here. The last couple I wanted to talk about here, of course, Showcase 22, an 8.5, selling for $93,000. Very close to being a 6-figure book. The runner-up for the all-time high of this book, there are grades that are higher than that particular copy. And this Hulk 181, the 9.8, sold for the record. I talked about this in the Go Collect video earlier this week. Some other great sales. And then this Fun Comics right here, first appearance of Dr. Fate, a 9.0 sold for $90,000, the second most that has ever sold for. I think the previous for that, or at least, grades that were around that, were generally like around, 5,000 or whatever the case was. So a monster sale for that particular book as well. And this kind of brings us back to, the original point of the video, just talking about this idea of quiet quitting. I feel like it's such a confusing time right now with comic books, where we got this, a lot of prices getting pulled back, a lot of correction happening. Of course, on the high end, when we have very, limited supply, Golden Age books, super high grade silver and bronze. I mean, that stuff is going to continue to set record highs if it's extremely rare, because it's going to be selling to those whales. You have a lot of people, going crazy over the D23 books. And then you have a lot of other books that are great key books that, you can't even give away right now. I mean, I look at Fantastic Four 52. I mean, everyone is trying to sell their Black Panther book. We got the movie coming up. Nobody's willing to buy it. I mean, it's crazy how many times I see people posting FF52 or ASM 129 or all of these books, that people are trying to sell, and nobody is interested. There's a lot of apathy, a lot of quiet quitting in the comic book market. And I think that November is going to be a really interesting time for us to analyze. I mean, November is my current prediction of where I think we'll see the comic book market start to trend back up. But this is also going to go in opposition to what we're seeing in the global economy, where we have the midterm elections. I think that the gas prices will shoot back up once we get past November. I think that, the inflation, they're going to put the quantitative tightening really hard after November as well. So the months of December, January, up through, April could be really tough on the sort of macroeconomic factors, which, we'll see if that actually has an effect into the comic book market, because I have a feeling that, let's say Black Panther 2 comes out, it's a great movie. Things are starting to trend back up with the trend line. People are starting to get that FOMO again. People are starting to get excited. Ant-Man comes out, there's new faith in the MCU and the direction that they're going. It'll be really interesting to see if comic books truly are, recession proof, like a lot of people like to say. But, I'm going to be sitting here, I'm going to be watching it, and I'll be here for you guys to report on all of it. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think about, this quiet quitting in comic books? Are you somebody out there who's just, hasn't gone to the LCS for the last week or two or 3 or 2 months or whatever? Are you just not interested? You got your eBay auction, the one that you've been watching for, you're like, whatever, I'm just going to not bid on it. I mean, do you feel like a lot of people are sort of quitting comic books in that sense? I feel like that is something that happens a lot to comic book collectors. And it definitely is, I'm feeling that way with a lot of the prices that are kind of going by. We have records, going at all times, and then we have record lows happening on the very same day. So it's very, very interesting time for the market. Anyways, that's all I got for this video. I got a claim sale going on tomorrow. If you guys want to come by and buy some books, drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I will see you in the next one.